Purdue represents hard work, achievement, success where few think success can be had.
2000 team is special. You look at the accomplishments of that season, the Big Ten championship, the Rose Bowl berth. The fact that our school hadn't been there in 34 years. I just know how many people have been waiting for that opportunity again.
It's a big deal in the Midwest and in Big Ten country to get to Pasadena on New Year's Day. As a Purdue fan, that was a pipe dream. It was almost as realistic as winning the lottery.
When Bob Greasy and the Boilermakers hit that lottery and reached the 1967 Rose Bowl, little did anyone know at the time how long and winding the road would be before Purdue returned to Pasadena. By the end of the 1996 season, a full 30 years later, Roses and Southern California appeared hopelessly out of reach.
This is the 12th consecutive year that Purdue will not have a winning season.
Not only was it 12 consecutive losing seasons, they weren't even close in most of those years of having a winning season or playing 500 ball.
It was not fun football to watch. It was bad and boring, that lethal combination, I think.
The heat is on the head coach here at Purdue. Jim Coletto has got to produce a winning organization here.
After the 6-year Jim Coletto era that produced no bowl game at all, I think the athletic department and the football team are really sort of teetering on the edge here.
In November of 1996, then Purdue head coach Jim Coletto resigned in the midst of a 3-8 season. Athletic director Morgan Burke began to forge the Boilers' new direction.
I convened a group in my basement, and I had Coach Katie, who's the legendary basketball coach here, and Jim Coletto was there, and we just began to talk about what is it we think we need. I threw out the question, you know, who might fit that bill, and one of the names that popped out was Joe Tiller.
A Purdue assistant in the 1980s, Joe Tiller had found success as the head coach at Wyoming, riding a spread offense that propelled the Cowboys to a 10-win season and the 1996 WAC title game. Tiller jumped at the chance to build a winner in West Lafayette.
At that time, the Illinois job was open and the Minnesota job was open. And I had gotten calls from both those universities. But the Purdue thing was like, well, Joe, we want you to become our head coach, and we want you now.
I said, if you'll come in and roll up your sleeves and work with me, I'll roll up my sleeves. And I said, we're going to have a level of trust that we can build the resource base that we need to be competitive.
We're here to win a championship. We've won them in the past, and we will win them again in the future.
I didn't buy into this idea that Purdue hasn't had a winning season in 12 years, and it might be another 12 before they have a winning season. I didn't subscribe to that.
Tiller's first order of business in 1997, introducing the Purdue players to his brand of football.
Knew nothing about Joe Tiller other than that he came from Wyoming, that the team was the Cowboys, and, you know, he had a good-looking mustache.
Joe Tiller. I laugh because Joe is always trying to find a way to get in your head.
He's really into the psyche of players and the collective team. Understands when to push, when to pull off, and it's not always the same.
Very early on, we began to trust him. We had a do-right rule. Say do what you're supposed to do.
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 Do it when you're supposed to do it.
The way it's supposed to be done. How you're supposed to do it.
The way it's supposed to be done. When you're supposed to do it.
And do it that way every time.
Do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, the way it's supposed to be done, and do it that way every time. I read that as a quote from Bobby Knight. It stuck with me. I'd never forgotten it.
Years later, Purdue players still haven't forgotten the indoctrination of that mindset at Coach Tiller's legendary early morning workouts.
In 6 a.m.s, if they say step over the bags, make sure you step over the bags, keep your shoulders straight. He means step over the bags, keep your shoulders straight, or we're going to repeat it all over again.
I think we lost 15 to 20 scholarship athletes just because of how difficult and challenging those off-season workouts were.
Those guys became convinced that they were doing something that their opponents weren't doing. And they were getting tougher as a result of that.
The Joe Tiller era at Purdue began on September 6, 1997 in his hometown of Toledo against a Rockets team that had lost by 34 to Indiana the previous season.
I knew they had a pretty good football team, but it was the MAC, you know. And Big Ten teams are not supposed to lose to MAC teams. At least that's what our players believed.
Your final score, your Rockets 36, Purdue 22.
This is your new football coach. This is going to be the guy who saves your football program, rescues your athletic department, can't beat Toledo.
What we were used to with Coach Coletto was a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, a lot of cussing, and a lot of saying, hey, we can't do that.
Coach Tiller comes in and he's calm and kind of makes a little sarcastic joke. Well, hey, looks like we definitely need to practice some more.
I thought, well, we've got 10 more games to play. There's no sense in ripping a strip off of them today.
He goes, we have some corrections to make, but we know what corrections we need to make. You guys proved a lot to me today. I guarantee you, next week we're going to beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame's ranked in the top 10.
Purdue outplayed the 12th-ranked Irish thanks to 352 yards passing from quarterback Billy Dicken and nursed a 21-17 lead late when one play call signaled the start of the revival of Boilermaker football.
But we knew after the Toledo game we can't push the ball down the field the way we like, so we ended up throwing the bubble screen.
Here comes Sutherland. Sutherland to the 25. Sutherland to the 10. Sutherland down inside the 5-yard line. Would you believe Joe Tiller? He's still throwing.
And the stadium just erupted. And I thought, these folks better get used to this because we're going to do this a lot.
Touchdown, Purdue! Joe Tiller and the Boilermakers upset Bob Davie and the Fighting Irish.
It's pandemonium, Coach. Hope for years.
I hope we have a whole lot more of these. It's a great win for Purdue. First of many, we hope.
And once we beat Notre Dame, we believe we could beat anybody.
The Boilers finished Tiller's first season on the sidelines with a 9-3 record and an Alamo Bowl victory over Oklahoma State in Purdue's first bowl appearance since 1984. All thanks largely to a high-flying offense that introduced 2 new words to the Big Ten football vocabulary: the spread.
Basketball on grass is what they dubbed it. We just spread the ball all over the place.
Putting more speed on the field, trying to find individual matchups. That's all we knew. If someone asked us to go run the wishbone, we would have failed miserably.
The 97 year, I think my wife said it best. She said, every week's like Christmas. It's like opening up a new package and, oh, there's a win in there.
When Joe Tiller came in, there was this renewed enthusiasm, almost like, we're wiping the slate clean and we're going to build the foundation from here on out as to how we want to be remembered.
There was no hype for Drew Brees at all. He was an afterthought as a recruit.
Drew Brees may have been the quarterback of a state championship team in football mad Texas, but lacked the blue chip label from recruiters at the next level.
Try to put myself into the shoes of a scout who's coming to look at me in high school, and you're saying the guy's 6 foot, 190 pounds. So there's nothing physically impressive about this guy. He's coming off a knee injury that I had torn ACL the year before.
A lot of people thought he was too short, thought he had a weird throwing motion. There were all those knocks against him.
I knew that a Purdue degree would take me a long way after football. That was a huge factor in me choosing Purdue, but also it was Joe Tiller.
There was something about him. He had a little swagger, and I'll never forget Tiller one day at the practice field. He said, see that skinny guy over there? You're going to be glad he came to Purdue. He's going to be a heck of a player.
Brees opened the eyes of many of his teammates his freshman year, despite being the backup quarterback.
His deep ball was exceptional. He would put a garbage can 60 yards away, and put up, and it would land either in it, against it, bounce off of it. He would do it all the time.
Drew's focus. I've never seen anyone before who could actually sit in a crowded room with the TV on and not be bothered by anything else.
Named the starter as a sophomore to open the 1998 season, Brees became the focal point of the Purdue offense, starting the opening weekend at the LA Coliseum.
We played the Pigskin Classic. It was the first football game of the year. As a kid, when you think about playing against one of the most storied programs in all of college football, you think of USC.
It had to be 300 degrees out in the Coliseum that day. Didn't affect Drew. Nothing affected Drew. We knew when we left the Southern California field out there in that first game he played in that we had some pretty special player.
SC brought a blitz, and Drew sidestepped the guy, scrambled around a little bit, moved back up into the pocket a little bit, and found a crosser in the end zone and put it right on him. And I can remember still to this day my exact words to the other coaches on the headset: "Boys, I think we found ourselves a quarterback." Because without a quarterback and a spread, you might as well be playing tiddlywinks.
With his signal caller in place, Tiller's offense took to the air with historic results, beginning on an October 1998 evening at Camp Randall.
We were in pretty much a no-huddle, 2-minute type style offense the whole game. We throw it an NCAA record 83 times. And you're sitting there just scratching your head saying, how do we do that?
My primary concern was whether his arm was going to stay attached to his shoulder or not.
Breeze rewrote the Big Ten record book in 1998, setting new benchmarks for attempts, completions, yards, and touchdowns. He earned the conference's Offensive Player of the Year honors, leading Purdue to a 9-win season, and caught the nation's attention with a legendary drive in the waning seconds of the Alamo Bowl against 4th-ranked Kansas State.
A lot of back and forth. Kansas State makes the late run to get the lead. Of course, then we get one of those iconic Drew Brees comebacks.
In that drive, he made a number of great plays, including scrambles. Very timely.
Brees lofts it for the end zone. Got him there. Touchdown, Isaac Joe. That's as good as a pro drive on Sunday for John Elway. Denver comeback.
When it really counted, we cashed in. We drove 80 yards in 54 seconds to score the winning touchdown. I really can't comprehend what just happened.
He had thrown for almost 4,000 yards. At that time, I don't know if it's proper to use the word savior.
You just shake your head going, they're not talking about me. I'm just trying to get good grades and win some football games.
They want to go back to the right. Can Brees make it? Dives! The corner got it! Drew Brees!
As a junior, Brees steered Purdue to a 3rd straight bowl game in 1999, finishing as the runner-up for the Davy O'Brien and Maxwell Awards, and earning enough votes to gain an invitation to the Heisman Trophy ceremony in New York, where he finished 4th.
You knew he had gut, you knew he had pocket presence. A lot of the intangibles that people weren't measuring back then, he was able to display those.
Sutherland open, got it! He's off to the races! They will not catch him! Touchdown, Purdue! 99 yards!
I knew I wasn't going to win the Heisman Trophy in '99. There was a lot of great players involved in that deal, and I was just happy to be there.
He couldn't walk out of the locker room without getting mobbed. We had to hire full-time security for him. Usually you take it for the head coach. Not in his case. He was much more valuable than the head coach was.
My offensive linemen know I love them. They're the lifeguards. You need to ask them about the picture they took in the Speedos.
Matt Light is a lunatic, okay? He was like making a joke, at least I thought it was a joke. And I said, you know what? I'll do it as long as everybody else in the group agrees to do it. And these clowns, he got to everybody.
I was the smart guy, and I got in the back, so it doesn't live with me so much.
I intentionally went to go get some ice and treatment because I couldn't see myself getting panties and the shoulder pads. Couldn't do it.
I'll never forget, we were at Penn State. The ref comes into the huddle, and he reaches into his pocket, and he pulls out the picture. And he says, what is the deal with this?
The 1999 season ended with a sour taste in the mouths of the Boilermakers following a 28-25 overtime loss to Georgia in the Outback Bowl.
You go to the Outback Bowl and blow a 25-0 lead, and you start to wonder, where is this program going? Will it ever get over the hump?
I think that fueled our fire a lot in the offseason with Drew and with, the weapons that we had. We knew that we were pretty darn good.
As the 2000 season dawned, Purdue returned virtually its entire offense. Left tackle Matt Light anchored an offensive line chock full of NFL talent. And Drew Brees threw the ball to an electric cast of standout receivers.
To me, that offensive line was the real key and never got enough credit.
We had 5 guys that played at least 5 years in the National Football League. We all appeared in at least one Super Bowl. 4 of us won the Super Bowl. We made Drew look good, but he made us look good too.
Vinny Sutherland had great speed, was a phenomenal receiver. Seth Morales, a walk-on from Butler, was a key part of the success of that football team. And Tim Stratton, who was a sure-handed tight end. Drew had some targets.
A guy that was a difference maker for us that year, receiving-wise, was John Staniford, a true freshman. Tall guy, good target, real soft hands.
The biggest question, the kicking game. Travis Dorsch failed to earn the fans' trust after missing 3 field goals and an extra point in the Outback Bowl.
Fans get caught up in the success of the football team, and we had big expectations moving forward. So I think to a 21-year-old that hurt, phone calls, emails, death threats.
Dorsch added punting duties to his workload for 2000, and what would become a month-long special teams nightmare for the Boilermakers began in September at Notre Dame.
They broke through, and I was maybe a little slow on my steps, and we get the ball blocked.
For a touchdown, Travis Dorsch.
And it really just set the tone, sort of in a negative light for that game. We'd installed a fake punt that week in practice, and Vinny had a go route, but unfortunately we weren't on the same page.
Oh no, fake, he's throwing the ball. Purdue had no idea what was going on. Sutherland was not even looking.
No one in the entire kicking team knew the fake was on. So that is still one of the real mysteries in Purdue football.
The special teams errors, a Drew Brees pick 6, and a Notre Dame field goal as time expired handed Purdue its first loss of the season, 23-21.
They got beat by a 6'7" sophomore ex-tight end quarterback who was making his first start of his career, Gary Gotze. Now, that was an embarrassment.
After more special teams miscues in a win over Minnesota, the 3-1 Boilermakers traveled to Penn State, a team Purdue had never beaten since the Nittany Lions joined the conference.
Hey, that's the only time we're gonna hear that today. 1, 2, 3, win!
Wasn't a great Penn State team, but that was a week after the Adam Teleferro injury at Ohio State. The entire stadium was chanting his name, and when they came out of the locker room, I'm not sure any of their feet touched the ground.
Here comes the pressure. He won't get rid of it. And Penn State's got him trapped.
It's something I, to that point, had never really seen. I'd never seen sort of a sack, on a punter.
Snap. They got to him again. Same guy.
When there's a mistake made in the kicking game, it's not only the fact that it's a mistake, but where on the field is the mistake made. Both of those were made in the shadow of our own goalpost.
Penn State cashed in both miscues for touchdowns, and the Boilermakers fell to 3-2, losing by the exact same 2-point margin they had at Notre Dame. A season bursting with hope and promise was suddenly in danger.
After dropping the game to Penn State, there's no way we should have lost to that team on that day. We were written off.
I can remember walking into the locker room saying to our athletic director, Morgan Burke, after we lost that game, I said, Morgan, I don't know if we're ever going to be good enough to win this thing.
After that Penn State game, Drew Brees called out the special teams. He was quoted as saying, hey, this has got to get cleaned up or this season is going to go south.
To start off 3-2, obviously not what you want. And you've got one of two directions you can go. Either you allow that to really have a bad effect on the rest of the season, or you say, if we take it one game at a time, all our hopes and dreams lay right there within our grasp and within our control.
At 3-2, the 2000 Purdue Boilermakers were staring at a gauntlet of an October. 31 days that would define their season. 4 conference games, 3 nationally ranked opponents, beginning with the number 6 Michigan Wolverines.
We can stop the bleeding now, or we can just lay down and die. And Michigan's coming in here. It's either them or me, and it ain't gonna be me.
Now, that game was unique. I can remember Brock saying, Jim, you're going to score a lot because we can't slow them down.
Probably the first 2 or 3 plays they threw at me, and I was like, oh, goodness, it's going to be a long game.
Michigan scored a touchdown on each of its 4 offensive possessions in the first half. building a 28-10 lead and sending Purdue to the locker room in desperate need of a season-saving turnaround.
We're going to end up in El Paso instead of Pasadena, and I think that's what the fan base felt at halftime.
I told the team, we know you guys are going to stop this football team. We're going to shut them out in the second half. And we got them right where we want them. I'm not sure I believe that, but it sounded good.
Drew Brees got up. I think Matt Light got up and talked about how it's a whole second half. If they scored that many points the first half, why can't we score that many points the second half? Defense has got to step up and get some stops.
It's all about heart. It was all about discipline. This game is about us and what we wanted to prove to ourselves and to our fans in that stadium.
And all of a sudden, the defense gives up 79 yards in the second half, and the offense starts moving the ball up and down the field.
I knew that at 28-10, if things continued on that pace, we had no chance of coming back. But I also knew that it was only a matter of time before our offense, just the lid kind of came off.
And Lowe back on the field, slips through, touchdown Purdue!
We essentially came out in that third quarter and just started to play our game. We started to throw the ball a little bit more.
Brees gave me a nice pass, and I think Marlon Jackson was on me and kind of slung him off a little bit.
Over the middle, has the freshman touchdown!
Trailing 31-29 with just over 2 minutes remaining, kicker Travis Dorsch, who had already been replaced as punter, had an opportunity to give Purdue the lead from 32 yards out.
There was a little wind moving from right to left. I knew that I struck it well. Unfortunately, it missed.
For the lead.
Well, you know, when he missed, I had to stay away from it, because that may have been the closest I've ever come to assaulting a player in public.
We're sitting on the bench, and he comes back to me, and he's looking at me, and he's like, what did I do? Like, what have I done? And I said, Travis, we're all right. We got time on the clock, and any time that we have that clock is ticking, we have a chance.
Our defense didn't say a word to me. They got their butts on the field. They got the 3 and out that we needed. Drew works his way back down the field and puts me almost in an identical position. I knew that this kick was pretty much a career maker or breaker for me.
And here comes Travis Dorsch, officially 33 yards.
I had all the faith in the world in Travis, and even though he missed the first one, we knew that if we give him another opportunity, he'll make it.
Here's the snap, the placement, and the boot. It is up. It is good. It's good. It's good. It's good. 4 seconds to go. Travis Dorsch has the monkey off his back. Purdue leads Michigan 32-31.
I think, again, the thing most fans are going to remember is the obscene gesture that Dorsch made toward the fans.
The emotion came to a head there, and I went and I saluted our student section and thanked them for all the support in the offseason.
That was obviously a breakthrough win for the program. I think that's the game that Tiller kept pointing to, that, you know, maybe the program had come of age.
That was a beautiful feeling. Being a sea of madness, I mean, it was crazy. And I remember, like, everybody's in there just grabbing on you, like, telling you know, they were so happy.
That's the epitome of complimentary football. You know, both sides working with each other, making plays for each other, putting each other in good positions, and just knowing that this is our time, and this will be a defining moment for our team this year, but also our program.
As the crowd stormed the field after Purdue's 32-31 upset of 6th-ranked Michigan, tight end Tim Stratton's entry into the celebration almost cost him some equipment and playing time.
I remember handing my helmet to a kid from one of my classes and saying, hold on to this. So that was kind of fun. They let me down from the goalpost. I crowd surfed to the 50-yard line. I realized I didn't have my helmet with me.
Tim was an idiot, you know? I don't know how you lose a helmet, but he managed to do it.
Stratton, he and I did our share of jousting. We needed to show everybody that the team is the team. It isn't one guy.
That night, one of our roommates got a call. He called from the University Computer Lab and said, is Tim Stratton there? He goes, well, can you please tell him his helmet is where he left it underneath the north end zone goalpost with a note in it. Turns out the kid had broken into the stadium, put my helmet underneath the goalpost, which I was hanging off of, and a note inside, which had read, Dear Mr. Stratton, I hope this helmet brings you as much pleasure as it has brought me the past few days. And I was able to play against Northwestern.
The second half stand against the Wolverines signaled the arrival of a stout Purdue defense.
This defense should not have been a good defense if you look at it on paper with the freshmen that were starting.
Technique-wise, I didn't know anything about technique. I could tackle, but as far as backpedaling, I couldn't really even backpedal.
Stu Swiger, when we needed him, he came up with those hits that put some fear into the receivers.
I think it is the untold story of this football team, without question. We had guys come in and contribute that you really didn't expect on this defense.
It went from being a young, inexperienced defense to one that started to gain confidence and really started to play well after that.
When you look at Gilbert Gardner, Joe Odom, Landon Johnson, all were linebackers on that team, all were NFL draft choices. You look at the defensive line where any great defense starts, Matt Mitrione wasn't picked. He was a real character and a real brawler inside at a tackle spot. Craig Terrell was a draft choice. He played in the NFL for a long time. Aiken Adele coming off the edge. Then Sean Phillips was a real special pass rusher.
Purdue's roll through October continued in Evanston. Drew Brees threw 5 touchdowns, 3 to John Standiford, 2 to Vinny Sutherland. And the defense forced 3 turnovers in a road win over 17th-ranked Northwestern. Now 5-2, the Boilermakers next visited Camp Randall, where they hadn't won since 1988.
It was a very difficult place to play. We always got our butts handed to us when we played in Madison.
That was just a good, hard-nosed football game. You know, it was back and forth. We go to OT.
They had the ball first. There was something I know in our minds that we had talked about, like, look, don't even give them the chance to score. I know not a touchdown, not a field goal.
Third sack of the afternoon. Adele is putting on a clinic.
There was sort of a vibe on the sidelines like, hey, we can turn this into points. We can win this game right here.
Pasetsky comes onto the field, be 57 yards.
Craig breaks through the line. He gets it with the bottom half of his arm, even his chest.
High snap, and the kick is blocked. It's blocked. It's picked up by the Boilermakers, and it's going to be Woodyard. He's going to score. He's going to score, and the Boilermakers win it in overtime.
I think for a minute there I stopped breathing. I was like, get in the end zone, get in the end zone.
Yeah, man. That's all about the feet. That's all about the feet. That's all about the feet. You got to believe, baby. Let's go.
I remember everyone piling up on me, and we're at the bottom like, okay, this is starting to get just, you know, a little crazy.
Your destiny in your own hands. The Rose Bowl is still a possibility. That's got to be exciting.
Just win one more game. That's all Purdue needs to do. Just win one more.
That's where we really started feeling like, hey, maybe we're on a roll. Maybe this is our time.
And here come the Boilermakers.
The overtime win kept a shot at the Rose Bowl on the table for Purdue. But to maintain control of their Pasadena destiny, the Boilermakers had to knock off 12th-ranked Ohio State.
We felt like we were going to have a good football game with them. We felt like we had a real chance, particularly at home.
Adding to the drama, comments by Buckeye linebacker Joe Cooper questioning the toughness of Drew Brees.
We knew what that game meant, and then all of a sudden you throw that in the mix.
The game sort of went off as expected, except that the turnovers started to pile up on Drew Brees.
I ended up having 3 interceptions in the first half. That's not the way it's supposed to be.
An 83-yard punt return by Nate Clemens gave the Buckeyes a 20-10 edge after 3 quarters, setting the stage for 15 of the most dramatic minutes in Boilermaker football history.
From a psychological standpoint, one of the most up and down fourth quarters in the history of the program.
We couldn't get open in the first half, and we started to get open in the second half.
Brees knows it, in trouble, waits, he's got to throw it out of the end zone. Touchdown, Standiford.
You never fall asleep on Brees because you could be the first option or the last, and he'd find you.
They never adjusted. I knew I was getting the ball as soon as I lined up. And I was able to get in the end zone. That was a big one for us.
We thought the game was kind of in our hands if we could just control the offense in the last few minutes.
How do you get the clock to keep ticking to ensure victory? That's always the issue you have in the spread offense, is the 4-minute drills.
I'm thinking to myself, before the play even, the worst thing that can happen here is an interception or a turnover. And they bring a pressure up the middle, and sure enough, it's Joe Cooper. I was a little woozy after that hit. And to be perfectly honest with you, I was so mad at myself for throwing the pick that I was trying to knock myself out. I was trying to knock him out, and I was trying to knock myself out.
He tried to knock himself out, like just to erase the mistake he made. At least he did something right. And that's, dude, you don't hear quarterbacks say that, dude. Like, you never hear that.
I think everybody said, well, there we go again. It's going to be another 30 years till we go to the Rose Bowl because Ohio State's got this game done.
Everybody's wondering, they had seen the Drew Brees magic before. Did he have another comeback in him?
Trailing 27-24 with just over 2 minutes remaining, Drew Brees stood 64 yards away from changing the course of the Boilermakers season and program.
I dealt in a little self-pity there to have a throwaway result in the leading score of the game with 2 minutes to go. Just didn't seem right. This guy deserves better than this and a finish.
Ike Moore, one of our seniors, pulled me aside. He was a soft-spoken guy and just said, hey, what'd your mom always tell you? If you break it, fix it.
It was a way to kind of clear it and say, hey, put it behind you. Hey, if you broke it, go fix it, right?
Yeah, they bat down the first pass, so now here we are at 2nd and 10. And I remember I called one of my favorite plays in the offense.
Drew gets in the huddle and calls twins right, 74XZ pull. It's supposed to go to John Staniford or Vinny Sutherland.
Block to the left, block to the right. Cedric Brown stays at home alongside Drew Brees. Drew takes the snap from center.
And it was just this progression of, am I throwing the hitch? Am I throwing the fade? Am I throwing this, skinny post down the middle of the field?
Drew read through his progression. Didn't see those two guys open initially, so he went to his third option, A.T. Simpson's crossing route. That's not open.
And then here's Seth Morales, the epitome of Mr. Hustle, running this deep post route that he might get this ball thrown to him 1 in 1,000.
I took a lot of pride in just running my routes hard. I wasn't the biggest or the fastest receiver, but I always kind of went that extra effort.
I launch it, and as it's in the air, I'm watching him run what looks like about as fast as he can run. And I'm just saying, please be there, please be there.
The crowd goes quiet, it's dark, the ball's up in the air, and you've got 3 or 4 seconds just to kind of run and think to yourself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Seth, catch the ball, do not drop this.
Drew takes the snap from center, looks, has time to throw, airs it out deep, way downfield, grab by Morales, he's gonna score, touchdown Purdue, Seth Morales, there are no flags, the Boilermakers have taken the lead on a 64-yard strike, unbelievable.
And it's just overcome with emotion, just kind of dropped down to a knee. Thank God for that opportunity. And the next thing I know, Matt Light is bear hugging me, shaking me to death.
And he comes off the field, and I shake his hand, and he said, I told you I would.
The first, second, and third progression get that 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time. That just shows where we were at as a team, and Seth Morales epitomized everything we preach.
For me, it was one of those things where you've got this walk-on that wasn't supposed to play at Purdue. So it was a special moment, to say the least.
To be able to stand in there and make the play, the pass, as they call it in West Lafayette, from Drew Brees to Seth Morales, will never be forgotten in the history of the Purdue football program.
This, folks, is what they call an instant classic. You won't see a better last 3 minutes of any football game.
I think it really solidified what Joe Tiller was doing at Purdue. And it showed that, hey, you can win with this basketball and grass style. Without a doubt, it arguably was the greatest play in Purdue history and one of the biggest games in Purdue history.
Well, I guess I had to redeem myself somehow. That'd be the best way.
Are you smelling roses?
Well, I'm smelling them, but they're still 2 games away.
Rising to number 9 in the AP poll, their highest spot since 1980, Purdue traveled to East Lansing, and the glory of October faded into 3 Breeze interceptions and nearly 300 Michigan State rushing yards.
We went up there and didn't play well. Never played well the whole ball game. They got after us pretty good. We didn't block well in the front. We didn't throw and catch. We laid an egg.
It's also the only bad game I've ever seen Drew Brees play. His forte as a passer is his accuracy. He's phenomenally accurate. And he wasn't accurate that game.
The loss dropped Purdue to 5-2 in the Big Ten. But Iowa's upset of Northwestern created a 4-way tie atop the conference heading into the final week of the season. Holding the tiebreaker thanks to wins over co-leaders Northwestern, Ohio State, and Michigan, Purdue needed only to claim the old Oaken Bucket against Indiana to lock up the second Rose Bowl appearance in Boilermaker history.
I remember Coach Tiller talking at kind of a pregame why he was not nervous, and he talked a lot about his offensive line and how we should dominate the game.
It was strange to see Purdue clinch the Rose Bowl berth on the legs of a running back like Montrell Lowe as opposed to the right arm of Drew Brees.
He was a load to get to the ground. He had a great ball game that game. I felt going in that we could run the ball against them.
If they stacked to the right, we went to the left. They stacked to the left, we went to the right. And for us being able to just chop wood, that's what we called it, chop wood, it was amazing.
For one afternoon and evening, basketball on grass became the Montrell Lowe Show. 38 carries, 208 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a 28-point Purdue win, igniting a celebration 34 years in the making.
I remember right before the clock went down to 0, I ran over to the bench and Drew was sitting there and he looked at me and said, "We did it."
Waited a lifetime, 34 years. And now for Purdue, the wait is over. California, here they come.
6:53 p.m. I think people remember the time when the Boilermakers finally put the nail in the coffin in Indiana and they were headed to the Rose Bowl.
I just remember jumping, hopping up and down and saying, the Rose Bowl, we're going to the Rose Bowl, we're going to the Rose Bowl.
To finish that year off and be able to hold roses in your mouth with guys you came in with, you grew up with, that was a good way to finish.
That game in itself made it the validation of everything that you've gone through, and that to take care of what you're supposed to, you get rewarded.
That 2000 season, we had the field rush 3 times. The Michigan game, Ohio State game, and then Indiana. In one season, when you only have, 6 home games, and you have the field rush 3 times, that's pretty good. Clinching a Big Ten title and a Rose Bowl berth, when you commit to doing that 4 years previous, and you know the obstacles that you're going to have to overcome to get to it, it's significant. We did it, and the championship was ours.
It actually came from my wife, Arnett. And I always feel somebody be tugging at the back of my shirt. You know, and she'd say, boiler up, boiler up.
I went to the marketing people first and said, I have an idea. And of course, they didn't know me. I'm this crazy old lady. They said, oh, it'll never catch on. I said, well, I'm going to try.
She brought it up and started doing Boiler Up here. That's part of Purdue. It's in our fight song now.
With the 2000 regular season over, 2 Purdue standouts collected individual honors. Tim Stratton won the John Mackey Award, given to the nation's top tight end, while Drew Brees picked up the Maxwell Award, honoring the nation's top player, and earned a return trip to New York for Heisman consideration.
We felt very good about Drew's chances winning the Heisman. He didn't, but we felt he had a really legitimate chance to win it.
Heisman 2000, there was a bunch of great candidates again. Chris Weinke won the Heisman. Just being there and being a part of that elite, club, and just everything it stands for.
A Arriving from West Lafayette for their first Rose Bowl appearance since 1967, the Purdue team and its fans attempted to create new memories throughout Southern California.
What's up, West Lafayette? I'm sure West Lafayette's a ghost town. Seems like everybody's here.
Our pep rally had 40,000 people there. It was a phenomenal bonding experience.
Are you family?
We went out on Sunset Boulevard, I believe, and got to meet some really cool people when we were on The Tonight Show, so that was a lot of fun.
I just want to get the game on. I'm tired of all the pomp and circumstance kind of going around. I'm a player. I don't like all this stuff. I'd rather just get dirty and go at it.
We were so impressed with how nice the grass was at the Rose Bowl. We felt so comfortable there. This is us. We're gonna do this. Like, we belong here. We got it.
I'd say one of the really cool things that I'll always remember, because I've got it on the helmet right now, is the equipment staff and Coach Tiller surprised us by putting not just a P insignia on our helmet, but a P with a rose through it to signify that Rose Bowl.
Purdue's Rose Bowl opponent, the fourth-ranked Washington Huskies, a team that hadn't lost since September.
Keeps it, touchdown.
Washington had a really good team. They had a really physical team. They were a much more physical team than we were.
Just got it off. Air ball to the corner, touchdown. Todd Elstrom out-jumped the defender for the sixth.
They were definitely a physical team. We competed our hardest. We competed the best we could. You know, just some things didn't go our way.
To this day, I think about don't abandon the run so quickly. We didn't have a lot of success early. Then we started handing the ball to Montrell, calmed everything down a little bit.
Reese on second down and 10, throws high into the air to the end zone. Touchdown, Vinny Sutherland.
The second Breeze to Vinny Sutherland touchdown connection of the day tied the game at 17 early in the third quarter. But the Huskies turned out 268 yards rushing and sealed the 34-24 victory with 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns.
Despite not getting the victory at the Rose Bowl, it made a lot of people happy, and I feel like we really resurrected the Purdue football program.
If you were there and you played in it or coached in it, it matters that you didn't win it, but the fans just talk about the Rose Bowl. So I'm not sure winning or losing it 10 years later makes a difference.
At that point in time, it hurt and it stung that we did not win. But as the years continued to move forward and knowing what we accomplished, it was a special moment.
I'm so proud to have been a part of that 2000 team. Their commitment to each other, it was more than I've ever seen on any team.
There was a bond. There was a special bond between all of us, and still is.
This team, the 2000 Purdue football team, showed you can win big at Purdue. Purdue doesn't have to be a sorry sack football program. Purdue can be a significant Big Ten team.
The Tillers changed the complete Purdue culture. Moving forward, everything's been compared to the Tiller years.
It's almost a validation of what you're doing. You know, over the years, you've done it the right way. It's a good feeling knowing that you've come away and you've made a better time and a better place.
Meant everything. Not necessarily the glory days, but I mean, they kind of are. I was able to leave here as a champion in the Big Ten, and that means everything.
Out of the option look, throw end zone, intercepted.
I'm out there thinking I'm looking pretty sweet on national TV, but I drop the ball. Landon Johnson dives on the ball. I see about 4 or 5 of my team. I think they're running down to celebrate with me. Aiken Ayadel comes up. What are you doing? It's a live ball. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing is this?
Well, it looks like he's offering somebody a cocktail right there.
I still owe Landon Johnson a steak dinner for that.